Welcome back. Still haven't bought the new camera. So I'm using, and so the camera shut off on me. So I am using pumpkin seeds and I am using walnuts. That is my base. In fact, I think of the walnuts as the base followed by the pumpkin seeds. That's my logic. And you can make these kinds of cookies without any grain whatsoever, but I'm going to have a little bit, I want a little bit of complex carbohydrate here, and so I'm going to use a little bit of rice flour. This is the Arrowhead Mills brand rice flour, which I like their quality. You can also grind your rice up. You can get whatever rice you want. If you want to use a different kind of rice, and grind it in that coffee spice grinder, the Epica that I showed you. So now, low sugar. The issue of this being low sugar. I am going to first of all use stevia. Now, many people will say stevia is very bitter. First, there's two things I have to say about that. The brand that I like, and it's the only brand of stevia that I've found that I like, is Stevia in the Raw. Same company that makes sugar in the raw. I don't know why their stevia is less bitter, but it is. But in any event, it's still bitter. But when you combine stevia with some kind of natural sweetener, in this case, is that a teaspoon or half a teaspoon? Let me remember. In this case, a little bit of coconut sugar. I'm thinking that's a teaspoon. When you combine stevia with a natural sweetener, you don't notice the bitterness. The sweetness of the natural sweetener covers up the bitterness. So that way you can sweeten your cookie with less sugar. And so I'm using today coconut sugar, raw coconut sugar. This is raw coconut sugar. They claim that raw coconut sugar is a complex carbohydrate or something like that, and has a lower glycemic index. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they claim. Okay, and it's also going to be sweetened by the inclusion of goji berry. Most of you have heard of goji berry. Goji berry, or goji is a Chinese herb that's also used as a food. It's extremely rich in nutrients. Let's see, 3 tablespoons of goji, and this is 2 teaspoons. This is about a teaspoon of goji berry. Hang on a second, let me measure that once again because I want to give you accurate information. But you can experiment. 2 teaspoons. That's 2 teaspoons of goji berry. 2 teaspoons, and so 3 tablespoons of goji berry gives you a whopping 140% of your daily value for vitamin A. That's 1,282 micrograms. It has 8% of the potassium that you need. It has a whopping 15% of the iron that you need. So a great food for vegans and vegetarians. It has some calcium in it. It even has 4 grams of protein. 4 grams of protein. How does that happen? And then, of course, it has carbohydrate. 3 tablespoons is 23 grams of carbohydrate. It's high in fiber. 3 tablespoons has 4 grams of fiber. And this is very easily digestible, water-soluble fiber. And then, of course, it has natural sugar. The other sweetener that I'm using, and once I grind up the seeds, I might not use all of this. I have to eyeball it. That's how I cook. I'm also using golden raisins. I really prefer golden raisins for some reason in cookies, and also when sometimes I'll put raisins in dishes with like rice dishes or even flesh food dishes. I prefer golden raisins. I think it's the flavor. The flavor of the golden raisins is softer and more subtle than the flavor of the darker raisins. Having said that, there's probably some nutrients in the dark raisins that are valuable to you, but I'm going with flavor here. Now, I'm not going to grind these up. These are going to be added in. And so then I have my rice flour. And the other thing is I'm going to flavor this with cinnamon. I'm going to flavor this with cinnamon. Now, there's a lot of ways I flavor cookies. I will often use cardamom and saffron, but not with this combination of nuts. Okay, what kind of cinnamon am I using? I am going to use Vietnamese cinnamon today. It's winter. It's a cooler day in San Diego. Not that it gets terribly cold here, but it's a cooler day. And I am using Vietnamese cinnamon. Why am I using Vietnamese cinnamon? Vietnamese cinnamon is the most intensely flavored of the cinnamons. It is the most warming. It's actually considered hot in Chinese medicine. We use cinnamon, specifically Vietnamese cinnamon, what used to be called Saigon cinnamon. We specifically use it in Chinese medicine for strengthening the kidney qi, for warming the kidney qi. And the qi of the kidneys is the qi of winter. So it's a very valuable warming spice. And that's Vietnamese cinnamon. It's an intense flavor. It's very sweet and hot. I don't have to use Vietnamese cinnamon. I'm choosing to use it. Let's talk about cinnamon for a second, because cinnamon is so fun. There's also a cinnamon from Indonesia, which is a very medium flavor, which is very fragrant, and I really like to use, also quite sweet. And I used to use that in things. I like to use that in things like oatmeal or herb tea, where I'm using cinnamon, where I don't want the cinnamon flavor to be overpowering. But man, I did make a strawberry pie one year with Vietnamese cinnamon that was just fabulous. Something like strawberry that's really intense. I know this is not common, but I like to match that intensity of the strawberry, or if I'm just making a fruit salad with strawberry, with the Vietnamese cinnamon. Okay, and another option is Sri Lankan cinnamon. Sri Lankan cinnamon, also called Latin, it's cinnamomum vera. That is the cinnamon. My understanding is that's the only cinnamon that has an effect on lowering blood sugar. Of course, if you're going to use that medicinally, you have to use regular high doses. But Sri Lankan or Ceylon cinnamon is also wonderful. It's quite a bit more mild in smell, in aroma and flavor than this Vietnamese cinnamon. And then finally, Mexican cinnamon. This is Mexican cinnamon. You'll notice it's quite soft. It really breaks up quite easily in your fingers, whereas with the Ceylon or other cinnamons, you have to break them in a mortar. Oh my God, that smells so nice. The Mexican cinnamon is really nice in things where you want a cinnamon fragrance, where you want the fragrance of cinnamon that's in a light way. For example, if you were making Mexican-style rice pudding, or sometimes if I'm doing something with cocoa, even like a hot chocolate, I will use the Mexican cinnamon, because if I want sort of a light aroma of cinnamon. Okay, I am, what else? The natural fat. I am going to use olive oil. That is a tablespoon of oil. That's less than a tablespoon, about 3/4 of a tablespoon of olive oil. What kind of olive oil am I using? I am using, people complain about how expensive Whole Foods is. Actually, this cinnamon, which is Whole Foods' Olden brand, is cheaper than the cinnamon at your regular supermarket and better quality. This olive oil is cheaper than the olive oil that I've seen at the regular supermarket. It's, when it's their own brand, it's often quite affordable. And